Hi everyone, I'm Dr. Steele. Welcome to Cell Biology for the Fall 2019 semester. And today's video is just a quick introduction to give you a chance to get to know me a little bit and maybe for me to get to know y'all a little bit also. And that's a little hard to do in an online class because I don't get to see you face to face. So I have a couple questions for you. And you can find those in Tophat, and that is one of the 3 pieces of software that you'll need for this semester. So while I'm on this topic, let's go ahead and address those. The first one that you need is Smart Biology. This one is $98 US. The price that you see when you go to smartbiology.com might actually show up as 123, but that's Canadian dollars. The company is actually based in Canada. And because of that, sometimes students do have some problems purchasing. If your card keeps getting declined, even though you know you can afford it, try using PayPal. It usually goes through much easier. That one is where a lot of your homework is going to be, and it provides you with some really fantastic, incredible, detailed animations of these processes that we're going to be learning about that go on in cells. I love this stuff because they literally take the protein structures and animate them, so they are really, really, really accurate, and they really help you understand what's going on in a way that wasn't available when I was a student, and really helps me to understand these processes better too. The second piece of software is PackBack. This is an online discussion forum sort of thing, but it's a little bit different than what you see in Blackboard. So the purpose of PackBack in very general terms is for you to be able to kind of explore the world of cell biology with each other as a group. And your goal for that is to post 1 question and 2 responses to other students' questions every week. These can be tangentially related. They don't have to be directly about course material. In fact, their platform doesn't even allow you to post questions like, when is the next exam? For that, please check Blackboard. So there is an AI, artificial intelligence, that is going to help you learn to build better questions and provide better responses. I love reading the questions that everyone comes up with during the semester because some of them are fascinating and really great questions, and it's so hard for me to not jump in and go, oh, we're going to talk about that. That's coming in chapter fill in the blank. So you won't see me respond a lot there, but I do read them, and I will actually every week or so pull up a question or 2 that is featured from this class. You're all lumped together, so both my online and face-to-face students are in the same section of PackBack together so that you can interact with each other at least a little bit. It helps build a little bit more of a community, maybe not a lot, but at least some. The third piece of software is Tophat. Normally I use this for attendance tracking, but I'm also using it for participation. And that's why I'm asking you, even in the online course, to have access to it for this semester as well. I'm going to be using it to post some short quizzes to sort of assess how well you're understanding the information, and that's going to actually help me develop some new lecture modules based on where we're at and how this unfolds. So I changed a lot in this course this semester. And while I have a captive audience, I'll tell you a little bit about why. Number 1, we just dropped the chemistry prereq on this class. So some of you may have had chemistry already, many of you probably have, some of you have not. That's okay. If you find yourselves lost about the chemistry part, please do reach out to me. I've taught chemistry before, so I definitely know what's going on there too. But my goal is to at least get you the minimum that you kind of need to understand to be able to fully understand how a cell works, at least within the bounds of what we currently know in science, which is always changing. Beyond that, last semester I taught a course called Fundamental Biomolecules, and this one will be offered again starting in the fall of 2020, but I didn't use a single PowerPoint all semester. I hand drew every single molecule that we talked about, and it was difficult, and it forced me to slow down. But my students in that class said that they really understood this in a way that they'd never gotten in any other class. And that's actually really consistent with feedback that I get from students at the end of each semester with those student opinion surveys that you do. Many times what I hear back from students is that their favorite parts of my lectures are the parts where I kind of like hand draw these things out. And I'm not sure why that is, because I am no artist, as you will see. I am limited to stick figures, but there's something about that level of simplicity that helps bridge that understanding from, I have no idea what you're talking about, to, okay, I kind of follow that. And that's what I'm trying to do. That's my job, really, is to help you understand what's going on here. So I want to bring more of that back into my class. And that's partly why I'm choosing to redo this course. Third, one of the most important things is that my previous cell biology lectures, which are still available online, are long. Really, really, I think one of them is 3 hours long. Nobody wants to sit there for a 3-hour lecture. In fact, you would notice if you watched it that my clothes changed. I didn't even record it all in one sitting. I want to break this down into smaller, more manageable chunks, because part of the point of an online class is that you've got other stuff going on in your lives. You may have a job, you may have kids, you may have other classes that conflict, and that's why you're taking this online. Or maybe you just really want to sit on the couch and, you know, put your feet up in your fuzzy socks and pajamas and a cup of hot cocoa or tea or whatever it is you enjoy, and do your classes that way. All of which is totally cool. Those are excellent reasons to take an online class. So is having class if you're sitting on the beach, anywhere you want to be. And I want to make that approachable. Having a 3-hour video is not approachable. Let's be realistic. So I need to break this down into smaller pieces. My videos were never intended to be 3 hours in the first place, but I had a platform I was using, it went away. I had to make these videos as a stopgap, so the older ones were just not what I wanted them to be. So this semester, more of my hand-drawn sketches. I'm actually deliberately leaving blank slides in these presentations for me to draw things, and you'll notice that they're actually fairly thin PowerPoint decks. There's not like 144 slides that you'll be memorizing. I hope that helps explain a lot of what my thinking is as we kind of move forward. So the general workflow for this is I'm going to give you like my line drawing versions of how some of these processes work. Then I'm going to ask you to do like the smart biology homework. And that's going to give you the details and the fine points and hopefully a much better, deeper understanding of what's going on. And then when you come back to class, or since you're in the online environment, there will be a quiz in Tophat. And this is really intended to sort of gauge where you're at in understanding the material. And it's going to be a little harder for me to implement this in the online version, but if I notice that there's a problem where people are really struggling with a particular set of topics, I can go and record another video and try to address those points. And my goal is to do that in a timely manner, because in my face-to-face class, those quizzes are going to help me select what to talk about next, whether I need to go back and cover a topic like DNA replication again or more thoroughly, or if there's a fundamental piece that was missing or messed up, or whether we can move on into more advanced topics like what does DNA replication have to do with cancer development and progression? Because ultimately, that's the part that's most interesting to the most people, is not memorize all these cell parts, but why are you learning about this? And so this is where I go off on my next great tangent of today. And that is that I would really like to get to know a little bit about you and what your interests are. And this is something that I can't do in real time, so please go to Tophat, log in, and you should see a question there that's called interests. It is one that's assigned before we even start the semester, so do this before you actually delve into any of the lecture materials. I want to know what draws you to biology, not just cell biology, because some of you I already know, are going, I hate cells, I've been traumatized by this in the past, I don't want to take this class, but I have to. My goal is to make it interesting for everybody, at least in some aspect this semester. At some point, I want there to be one thing you can relate to. I'm going to talk more about this as we go through the first kind of introductory and welcome to cell biology chapter, but it's really going to help me couch this and engage with you differently if I know what your interests are. So just take a minute, tell me in broad terms, are you here because you want to go to medical school, because you want to be a pharmacist, because you're fascinated with how drugs work, or because you really, really think that coral is critically important to our ecosystem? Or are you worried about the Amazon burning, which is a current topic trending, and what is that going to have to do with cells? Okay, well, there's oxygen production, and there's a lot that kind of ties into all of this. So take a minute at least and just give me a quick response. What makes biology so fascinating that you had to major in it, that has put you in this class? I really, really want to know. And I figure it's only fair for you to get to turn the tables and ask me the same question. Some of that I can tell you. Some of that I also have a second question in Tophat for you, and that is the AMA. Ask me anything. So think about what you'd like to know. And it could be about me, it could be about my personal life, it could be about my professional life and what I've done in my career. It can be literally pretty much anything, and I will answer honestly. I will do a follow-up video to that particular question and post that for you online. In the meantime, I started college as an undergraduate many years ago now, and I was a foreign language major. That probably surprises many of you. In fact, I have every semester a couple foreign language major students who are going, I thought I was the only one. Okay, no, you're actually not alone. And the rest of you are sitting here going, how does that relate? Okay, it doesn't. It really, really doesn't. I couldn't figure that out either. How did I get here? And what languages have I studied? Those are both fair questions. So I've studied Spanish, French, Russian, Polish, Arabic, and Klingon, not in any order of importance, but of those, that's probably the ones that I remember the best. Spanish, I actually have a bachelor's degree in. French, I can read and speak a little tiny bit. Russian, I can still read. I'm not going to even attempt to speak it. Polish, Arabic, and Klingon, let's just not go there. Let's just pretend those disappeared out of my brain. Yes, Klingon, and no, it's not practical. But yes, I am a sci-fi nerd, and I am a geek, and I'm happy with this. Okay. My first semester in college, I took intro bio for non-majors because I was a foreign language major, so non-major, that made sense. But then something weird happened. The class wasn't like any science class I'd ever had, and it made me curious. And for me, being curious about something is totally my undoing. I can't let it go. I am one of those people who will dig through 30-some pages of Google search results or more, I did that last night actually, just to find one stupid little image that I know I remember seeing, but I can't find it. And I will look and I will look and I will spend hours looking, and sometimes it's disruptive, but I disappear very far down those rabbit holes. And that's what this class did to me. And I ended up having questions, and the only way to answer the questions that I had at the end of these 2 semesters of intro bio for non-majors was to take another biology class. Okay, so I did. And then that gave me more questions, so I took a different biology class, and then I took another biology class, and then I decided that at this rate I might as well just major in biology, so I did exactly that. And then I took biochemistry. And biochemistry for me was, for lack of a better way to put it, it was the golden moment. It was the heavens opened and the angels sang, and that's where everything gelled in my head, and it was addictive. I hope you have one of those moments in college. You should have one of those classes that really makes your brain just explode like fireworks and go, this is what I need out of my life. This is what I need to know. Biochemistry did that to me. I finally understood why I had taken general chemistry and organic chemistry, neither of which did I particularly like. But when I got to biochemistry, it was about stuff that I cared about. Food! This was about fats and proteins and carbohydrates, and I was hooked. I was like, wait, this is the fundamentals of like how my body is built and how everything I eat is used for energy. And why are we talking about gluten intolerance, and why is that so much of a thing? And this is what really hooked me into this field. And so then I decided that I didn't really know what to do with my life. Radford University, where I did my undergraduate studies, decided that I had accumulated far too many credits, and they kind of kicked me out. They basically just said, oh, you're graduating now. Bye-bye. And I said, oh, okay. So I came here to ODU and I did my PhD here jointly between ODU and Eastern Virginia Medical School, EVMS, which is just down the road a little bit. In my PhD studies, what I was looking at was how the immune system works in the brain. Technically, that field is called neuroimmunology. That sounds really sophisticated and scary, like I must be super smart, right? True story. What got me into that was that when I started doing my experiments in the lab, a third of my mice got these horrible brain infections and died. That's it. I couldn't figure out why. Okay, yeah, I was giving them a virus, but a third of them got sick and died. The other 2/3 did fine. What's the difference? Because here's the thing that didn't make sense to me. Those mice are inbred for up to hundreds of generations. They're supposed to be genetically virtual clones of each other. And yet, some of them were having a different outcome, and that didn't make sense. So I was really interested in that. Unfortunately, my PhD advisor was not. It took me a lot of pestering and begging, and finally he said, okay, I will give you 3 experiments. You have to show me that you can isolate these cells from the brain that we're interested in studying that are part of the immune system, that you've got techniques to label those, that it works, and then whether or not there's even a difference that can be observed. You've got 3 experiments, and then we'll talk about it some more if those are successful. They were, and it's the focus of his whole lab now. Gee darn. That's my personal version of revenge. It's not really revenge, but it kind of in a way is. So that's me. That's only a little tiny part of me. I know that many of you probably have other questions like, what kind of food do you like? And what have you done after you graduated with your PhD? I worked in dermatology research. That has nothing to do with like the immune system in the brain. But interestingly, an immune response kind of is an immune response. We see very similar processes in both the brain and the skin if you have an infection or an allergy problem. So I was able to translate those skills, and I spent 3 years working in commercial dermatology research for companies like L'Oreal. That was actually one who funded a fair amount of the research that we did. I still can't talk about specifics because, as far as I know, my non-disclosure agreements have never really expired, but the short version of what we did was we looked at things like skin creams to see if they would cause allergies or inflammation. In Europe, for example, it's illegal to test on animals. So all of that has to be done in like cell culture models, which is something that I know how to do. So I was very good at that part. And that is what I did for about 3 years after I finished my PhD. At the same time, I started teaching here at ODU as an adjunct, and I've been teaching cell biology, evolution, research methods in the Monarch Teach program, and starting this semester, I just became the co-director for Monarch Teach. So that is why I've stepped away from teaching evolution for a while. I had that class for 9 years. I really enjoyed it. I miss it already, but it was time to let somebody else take over for a while. Sometimes you need somebody with a fresh perspective, and I think that's really important for classes as well. So before I wrap up for this introductory video, I came across this on Twitter just a couple days ago, literally right before classes started, and it really resonated with me. I know you guys can read this, and I'm sorry, I use guys in the generic sense, but I know you can read this for yourselves. What's some good advice you received? I was asked one day. Are you a grade chaser or a knowledge seeker? Not advice per se, but it reshaped my perspective. And I love this. This is really important to me. It's not that there's anything wrong with being a grade chaser. There are plenty of them. They tend to congregate toward pre-med types of fields, people who are really driven to always get the A. There are other people who maybe aren't as worried about their grade, but they really just want to know and understand what's going on. And they may be just as happy with a B or a B minus or something like that, as long as they gain the knowledge that they really wanted. Both of those are valid approaches, but I would encourage you as this semester begins to stop and think about this and to identify whether you think you're a grade chaser or a knowledge seeker. I suspect many of you inherently are leaning one direction or the other already because you've got an inherent bias, but this may also depend on the class. So to put this back in perspective a little bit, when I was a senior undergraduate and I was getting ready to graduate, it was my last semester, and I had to go back and I had to take one of those general electives courses that everybody is like, oh, really, this is like 8th grade class. This one was nutrition. And I thought, I am going to be so bored in this class. This is going to be absolutely horrible. Oh, I have to deal with this whole thing for an entire semester. Please help. Because I had had so much biochemistry and I'd had so much biology and so much chemistry by that point. I was like, what can this class possibly teach me? And I honestly couldn't come up with a thing. So I tried to look at it from a different perspective. And that was, how can I integrate what nutritionists think with what I'm learning about in my other classes? So when we're talking about things like carbohydrates, or we're talking about things like proteins, or we're talking about things like fats, how does our dietary advice compare to my understanding of our cells, our bodies, biochemistry, and our metabolism? Where does that intersect? Because that wasn't being taught anywhere, but those connections were pretty clear as I worked through the semester. Ultimately, it actually made my nutrition course considerably more interesting for me, but it was about changing how I was thinking about it. And so I remember that very clearly, and I tried to keep that attitude toward things as I go forward in life. And that's just to always, even if I think something is a stupid, pointless waste of my time, try to figure out what can I get out of it. Even if it's just one tiny little new piece of knowledge, every little bit builds and every little bit helps. So that's where I'm going to wrap up for my introductory video. Your first assignments are available and they are in Tophat and in Blackboard. I will provide you links, so check out the course materials folder in Blackboard, and I will see you for chapter 1 very, very soon.